winning 90% of your new business because you have some sort of incredible value.
I'm going to take a bit of a different angle.
I've got a budget this big. I'm going to give it to you because you have a really killer plan.
You give a Red Bull to a turtle, what do you expect?
I think that's a dead turtle. So let's move on to...
E-rig.
Cheers.
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 Does your current premium finance company lock you into long-term agreements? That's because they don't want you talking to us. At IFS, we win your business the good old-fashioned way, with customer service. I know you don't always have to use a premium finance company, but when you do, you should use IFS. Cheers.
Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Digital Insurance Pint Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Tom Reed, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Jeff Roy, CEO of Excalibur Insurance, Adam Mitchell, CEO of Mitchell & Whale, and Steve Earle, CEO of Chief Insurance.
Good day.
And today we are very pleased to welcome back Theo Duchen, CEO of Acturis. Theo, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Hope you guys are well.
Yeah, thanks very much for asking. So we are, obviously we talked to Theo a year or so ago, and we want to check back in. Lots of promises, opportunities, promises made, opportunities talked about last time we were around, talked about connectivity. And really we want to check in and find out how things are going for Acturis and, in the Canadian market.
Yeah, so it's been since we last spoke, we've been working hard at things, and sort of the benefits are starting to emerge now. So in April this year, we went live in Canada, and that means that a broker could use Acturis as their BMS, and it's got all the sort of Canadian layer aspects to it. For example, address lookup, vehicle lookup, the CSIO aspects as well. So that's pretty exciting, and we've grown probably at a quicker rate than we figured, which is really exciting as well. So. April was a really big month for us, and that seems to have gone pretty well.
Fantastic. You said you've grown faster than anticipated. Generally speaking, where is that growth coming from?
Well, one of the brokers that has gone live is Westland, who has acquired probably at a quicker rate than we imagined, and I guess now pretty much the whole of Westland in BC is on Acturis.
That's good news. I was talking to Kerry Watson. I know that the original goal, I think, was last July. What challenges, Theo, did you have Canadianizing Acturis? Because I'm sure you think things will happen, and then you get into the real world, and all of a sudden things emerge. Was it the download, the EDI, kind of going backwards from what you're used to? Did that kind of give you some drag? Was it the standards?
It was the wrong direction for us, if you like. It was like driving on the other side of the road. but we understand the way it works, and that's fine. And eDocs was something we hadn't kind of come across before. Again, that we've done, and then CSIO forms and things like pink slips as well. So all of these things, they're not individually very complex, but when you take them as a collective, you kind of say, wow, that's quite a lot to chew off. But you just got to grind away and hit them one at a time, and then you can make pretty good progress.
In the pile of things that you've tackled, what's the thing you're most proud of? Is it the entire pile, or is there any one thing that stands out as a feat of strength?
I think the most amazing thing to have seen is getting what we call a full cycle integrated product up and running. And we did that with SGI. So you can start in Acturis, fill out the risk capture, get a quote, bind it, and actually do a change. and accept that change and accept the policy, the bind. So that's what we call in the UK full cycle, where you full cycle. And I mean, the next obvious step is to get the renewal invitation coming in electronically. And then you've really got a complete full cycle. But just to have done that is really exciting. And that, I believe, is the first time that's been done in the market.
What made them a good partner? What set SGI in the lead for that?
I guess they were pretty keen to have a go, and then just listen to us as well. Sort of take our input, because some of the processes, for example, we had a change as regards midterm adjustments or changes. It at least from our perspective, it needed to work slightly differently. So we had to have a long discussion about that and kind of figure it out together. But that seems to have worked pretty well. So we're really excited, and we've rolled that out subsequently with others, and so we've got kind of a good now model, that's of a Canadian insurer and a BMS kind of integrating, and you can kind of see how it's going to move from there.
So let's break this down, just so our listeners get this. It's almost foreign because it hasn't happened. You can issue a new policy through Acturis after you put the information in, you quote it. You can bind it without leaving Acturis, and then if you made a mistake, or some people are very creative that they change their address 2 hours after they've got their policy out. We won't talk about that today. That's a different topic we can uncover about fraud and address gaming, but that you can actually change the address in Acturis, and those changes would come in real time. You can actually do that, and that's what you call a full cycle.
Yeah, so the systems are updating pretty much real time. And that's for habitational, and then we can roll that out to other classes. And we've done pretty much the same with Wawanisa now. You can get a quote with Wawanisa and bind that quote, and then we'll work on the change.
So Theo, let me ask, where are your brokers getting their quote? Are they, for the most part, still using ARS? Or in order to see the full spectrum of, choice? How is that working?
We've also linked to comparative raters as well.
Okay.
So we're offering folk, you can have comparative raters, supplement them with the full cycle integrations that we do, because those are going to come one at a time. As insurers are and we get integrated. So it's a kind of slow, steady sort of stepping where you've got a combination of comparative rating and pure integration products. But from a broker's perspective, you're seeing the sort of full spectrum of quotes. Some of them are bindable, if you like, and then others you'd have to do the traditional flipping to a portal.
Okay, so you're providing the quoting tool as well, the comparative rater.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in integrated into a single system. Nice. So the idea is you don't really leave the BMS you don't go into a comparative rater. It's all through web services and APIs.
So Excellent. You've got an API, like SGI obviously has an API. You can consume that.
Correct.
But other carriers that are less forward thinking, you subscribe to say PowerSoft or TBW, and then they fulfill that rate into your ecosystem, correct?
Yeah, or we manufacture the rates ourselves, horses for courses, But we just want to kind of give folk a kind of open palette and say, choose.
I think I understand that you built the portal for Economical, so that's hosted on a platform. And I've heard a lot of talk about the API. Does that mean that brokers can now access Economical via API?
Ultimately, if Economical won't agree that with you guys, say you want to access that product, we can expose an API. So, for example, in the UK, when we are hosting an insurer's product, if they want, for example, Applied or one of the other guys, competitors in the market to access that product, we're exposing that to them. And we have many situations where the same product is exposed to 3 or 4, even 5 BMSs.
So does that have a cost for you, or is that just a light switch on and off, and it's a security protocol for them?
There's a kind of expose and test cost for us if we're doing that for the to the carrier, but pretty much that's it, and then because it's the same API, and the standard is more or less agreed by everybody. People may use it in a slightly different way, but it's not significant.
Very cool. This sounds like the common sense BMS.
I think that's one thing we've done pretty well in the market, is to do that, because the point is that if somebody chooses to host a product with us for time, then they want to expose it to as many channels as possible, and one shouldn't constrain that.
If there's carriers that are listening, is there one, assuming they want this sort of end state of future systems, like SGI is on Instandard, I think, as a commercial platform, and I think Walmanisa's on Guidewire.
Yeah.
And there's probably other ones out there. Is there one that you experience as a better solution or easier to work with in the go forward states?
No, I mean, it's really where the insurer is in their sort of stage of development more than the underlying system. Most of the more modern underlying systems are perfectly capable of offering up a web service or an interface. It's really about the insurer's stage of implementation, where they are on their sort of, to-do list, because these projects can take quite a long time to implement. So, the guys, they'll usually start with motor or habitational, then do the other one, and then maybe commercial comes third. So that's been a particular point of frustration for us in the UK, where commercial goes quite a long way back behind personal lines, and it hasn't received the attention from the insurers that the personal lines products have received. So many insurers have offered APIs, and then others that haven't. We've effectively kind of done that for them. We offered a service to build and host their product and make it available through an API to anybody who wants to consume that product, be it our competitors or ourselves.
It's a very enlightened viewpoint. It's not always shared by everybody.
Well, it's the way we've kind of approached it, is that you've got really two separate businesses. One is a sort of product business where you're essentially building a product because the insurer may not have that particular product as a priority for their own stack of work. So you'd build it, and then once you build it, in order for that to be very useful to an insurer, it has to be multi-channel. It has to be able to be exposed not only to Acturis, but to, for example, their portal or another BMS, and that's pretty much what we've done in the UK, and in Canada we've done exactly the same with Economical.
So you mentioned SGI and Walmanisa, you've done some integrations with. You just mentioned Echo. In your opinion, which carriers from the last couple of years of your experience, which carriers are really driving the boat in connectivity from your firsthand experience? It's
a hard question to answer. What I would say is that in Canada we get a pretty good reception. People generally completely get where we're coming from, and I actually do believe that there's nobody who can't see the end state and where things are going to move to. It's a question about priorities, as it is in other countries as well. Like everywhere we are, you see exactly the same issue. Is they've got some system transformation project that's either going slower than they'd like, or costing more than they'd want, and things are just going to take longer to prioritize because they have to complete the basics. And I don't think there's any kind of it's unwillingness to move there. It's just a question of getting the fundamentals in place before they move. And I one thing I would kind of encourage folks to think about is to have a sort of interim solution, because waiting for the API can be a long time sometimes, and there's business to be won if one kind of figures out something in the interim as well.
So that would be an example, I guess, economical. They're on Guidewire, but then they went to you and you developed their products for them, right, on the commercial side.
Yeah.
And now they plug in, so they got up to speed or up to plane a little faster than their boat of change because they were able to do that, right? So
correct. And we've also helped them. Their commercial portal, the commercial lines portal, is actually Acturis. When you're logging into that, that's full cycle. You can do new quotes, bind, and change on that as well. So, and I'm sure the long-term state might be to move to an API, but that's actually can be pretty much the user wouldn't be aware of that. You can just basically, because essentially we're exposing that product, that manufactured product, to ourselves and any other channels via an API, and all you do is go to another API once they've exposed that.
The user experience, whether it's manufactured or actual real time, from the user's perspective, is the same.
In our experience, that's true.
Yeah, there's probably some extra work from the carrier's perspective, but from the user's perspective, they don't even see that.
Yeah, and the key is that the one product is used for multiple channels.
Right.
The problems come when you have a product per channel, and then changes to that product become very difficult to achieve.
Because you gave me a very disappointingly politically correct answer on which carriers are driving the boat here. So let me come back to this one a slightly different way. So you mentioned you've implemented with SGI, you've implemented with Wawanesa, you've implemented with Echo. Who else have you implemented something of note with? Whether that's a real-time API or whether that's something.
Gore, we've built a product for as well. And we're underway with a couple other insurers as well in build or in integration. We see it the same way. So I think probably by the end of the year, I'd say we'd have a pretty decent panel of integrated products on both personal lines and commercial lines.
Where's the bigger pickup on clientele from the broker side? Is it brokers moving off of competitors BMSs to Acturis, or is it power broker clients, should we say, evolving or moving amongst products?
We've got about 6 or 7, I think, power broker users in train moving over to Acturis, but none of them have gone live yet. They're in the process. So and that's because we haven't particularly pushed it at all. We're supporting Power Broker as a standalone system, and we intend to do so for the foreseeable future. So we're quite happy if folk want to continue to use Power Broker or want to consider Acturis. So actually, we've seen most of the folk come over from other systems so far.
Are you taking any new Power Broker customers, Theo?
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah, I wouldn't say guys are banging the door down, but there's a steady stream of new licenses, particularly startups. It's particularly price competitive for a startup. It's not the sort of most expensive software out there by any means, and so I think for the right kind of a broker, it's very suitable still.
Is that part of your standard process? Is looking at a pre and post? So more or less saying, here was our sales pitch. this is what you look like today, and then this is what you look like with us. Do you do that measurement on a regular basis to sort of say that, you know?
I'd love to say yes, we do, but the truth is we don't. What we tend to do is have a follow-up meeting with the broker, probably 6 to 8 months, generally after they've gone live, and then like work it out with them on measures that are meaningful to them.
So what I've seen in my experience too is you've bought a more expensive product. It's capable of more, but you're just not using it the way you're using it the exact same way. So an Acturis, somebody going from Power Broker to Acturis there's a lot of learnings there. They have to change their workflows. They have to, it just doesn't magically appear. The productivity just doesn't, materialize itself.
Yeah.
How much guidance and handholding do you do through that process, and how much follow-up on it, and do you charge for all of that?
Yeah, another great question. And again, I'd say it depends on the broker. Some brokers have that capability and sort of expertise in-house. So you take a broker like Westland, for example, it's a bit extreme, but they have an incredible capability in-house to do their training, their process design, and rollout. They'll effectively manage that, but on other brokers we'll play much more of an active role than that, and in that situation we tend to have a standard sort of training program, and the timing's very important. It has to be at a certain point in your implementation, otherwise it's not as effective. And then what we tend to do is have a couple of follow-up sessions that are already planned in, where and you can't do them too quickly because people are getting used to the system. So you have to kind of stage them out over the course of probably 12 months. One thing we have learned is that you've got to take it quite gradually, workflow in particular. One of the most common mistakes is to put too much into the workflows on go live, and then what happens is that people's task lists and diaries are swamped because the system's generating too many workflows. So you've got to kind of ease it in as people get used to the system and the task management capability. You ease those things in over the course of say 12 months.
The tricky part too is in Canada, obviously people still want to talk to somebody versus bind online. We haven't made that pivot point, so that's tricky. But I think it'd be interesting to look at the data and see, because you're at a whole different level where the self-service components there, a lot of the stuff we're doing is being done automatically by the machine and by your tech stack and your platform. So your people are doing, as you said, different things like data science, AI, all that kind of stuff, building journeys.
So one of the things we've focused pretty hard on is, as the level and of electronic trading increases, your ability to perform more automation increases. A good example of that is renewals. Renewals is probably one of the biggest categories of work at a broker, because it's probably about 75% of the activity. And if one can automate quite a large swathe of the renewals through either a complete automation, the savings are pretty significant. And we've seen automation start to happen in Canada that we've been involved in, where a renewal has been automatically generated. And if it falls within certain parameters, for example, it's a clean risk, there's no claims, the cap and collar of the renewal premiums are within a certain boundary that can be kind of pushed through without much human intervention, offered to the customer, who then can click on a link, log onto a portal and make a payment.
Are you doing any automated renewal repricing?
Yes, in the sense that you can do a market comparison at renewal. Yeah, we've done that a ton of times in the UK. It's something we think can easily happen here once you've got a good enough panel.
So that's that sounds like a huge benefit to brokers, a huge opportunity for brokers, and that that level of automation obviously requires decent level of connectivity. And I'm going to turn that, which we talked about before, but it also requires that connectivity requires strong standards. At our last session, we talked about how strong standards are crucial to connectivity. Are you how have you seen in the last couple of years? Have you seen much movement on that? Have you guys been engaged with CSIO? Do you have much influence on what's happening there in Canada?
Yeah, I mean, we've been engaged with the CSIO for probably 18 months now, where we've been learning about the market and the standards. And now, I guess we're probably becoming much more actively involved, and we want to try and contribute to the development of those standards. But I would add that they're not, we haven't seen anything that kind of we'd say, wow, why did the guys do this or something like that. It makes a lot of sense to us, and it's a good starting point. And like anything, you just need to keep building on it. And we're pretty keen to contribute to that and move it forward.
Do you see a time in Canada, I guess, if the companies could build similar APIs that you could consume them a lot easier at a lesser cost? Do you think that'll happen? Did you ever run into that in the UK where everybody got smart, used standards, and built to that? Or is that something that's too difficult to do and, is not never going to happen?
No, I mean, our UK experience certainly suggests that is kind of, in the UK, using APIs only, not even manufactured products, you could get a pretty good selection of personal lines, auto and habitational quotes pretty easily on more or less the same standard. So yeah, it's possible, and for sure it's coming.
There still is, as you say, there still is room for improvement. There still is some work to be done to make those standards, solid enough, stable enough, consistent enough so that they're easily transportable from one place to the next.
Yeah, there's work to be done, but it's not like the market's starting from scratch.
What do you think the biggest hurdle still ahead of Acturis or the industry is? As you've learned.
Well, security is a big issue. I think for us all. That's reared its head, and we're very, very, very sensitive to that and aware of that. And I think, and the other thing is, like, as connectivity becomes more prevalent, you have these sort of points of failure in the market that you've got to be very aware of and ensure that you have enough redundancy in the system.
So Theo, you mentioned the protection of data. I don't know if you want to open the kimono a little bit here. If I could ask you about data monetization. So of your revenue streams, is it more important to you to sell my activity in your BMS or the performance of my BMS? So what I'm doing in the quoter, what I'm doing in the BMS, and then selling my behavior as distribution to insurers or other parties or whatever, aggregated, of course, versus getting me to perform. Like, how does that set the stage for percent of your revenue, if you do it at all, that sort of thing? How's that set up?
We have a data services kind of area, but it's not a significant part of our revenues. I can't say exactly what it is, but I'd be surprised if it was 5% of our total group revenue.
Jeff calls it data muling. So
I'm sorry?
Jeff coined it data muling. So
Yeah.
we're the mules. You're selling the work off our back.
I think where we've seen it being very effective, both in the UK and in Germany, is where you use the data to help the insurers improve their product. That is probably the most important aspect that we've kind of seen to date. And that is like to be able to give them enough information for the guys to understand where they're falling short, both in terms of their responsiveness and their quotability and their conversions. And you can't just say, like, you know, for a realty product, you know, these are your figures. You've got to be able to say for commercial real, you know, products versus personal versus mixed use, multiple properties versus single properties, houses versus blocks of flats. And you have to have enough aggregated data to be able to analyze that and give folk meaningful information. But that we've seen is the most important thing so far that we've encountered in that. And it's a, you know, it's an important aspect to everybody. It's in everybody's interest to provide these guys with the data to get their products to a point where they're better.
Well, we've kind of got the last mile of the journey, right? Like the companies have an API, they see all the times you rate. Unfortunately, most of them haven't been smart enough to set up their API to tell for requoting versus a new client. So they see a whole bunch of quotes. It's not indicative of what's really going on, but they're getting a pulse in there, but they don't know if we bound it or not. The brokers and agents have that information. So we got the last mile. You know, they, like Google knows somebody wants to buy insurance, but they don't know where they actually bought it from. So that gives us a huge advantage over the Amazons, the Googles of the world, because we have that last mile. The unfortunate part is that data is, you know, you've got access to it, and the BMS and AMSs have it. You can aggregate and sell that back to the companies. And currently, as Steve mentioned, we're doing the work for it, but we're not making any money off it, and we're not getting the data checks on that. So do you envision a time where, you know, we'll share our data and you'll be able to pay revenue to the brokers and agents for our insights? That you'll actually be able to give us a check. I got a check here somewhere on my desk, my first data check from a vendor for my data that's aggregated. I never thought I'd see the day where that happened. It's starting to happen in some platforms, but do you think that's something we can aggregate and monetize together? Or is that something that you need to set up your own data lake as a broker, do it, and you guys set yours things up? What's your viewpoint on it?
I think what we've seen in the UK at least is that associations of brokers, like networks or associations, that's a kind of key role that they've performed is exactly this. Where for their association, they've effectively aggregated and are providing, you know, valuable data to for example, insurers on renewals or profiles of books or shares of wallet and things like that. And so that's kind of how we've seen that being monetized, if you like, or contributed. We're effectively providing the tool sets for it, and but most of the brokers will use an API that we provide to access our data warehouse and then export that into their environment, where they probably are commingling that with other data from, for example, other systems that they have in the house, and then providing that maybe to their network.
Okay, shut the front door. You provide groups of brokers access to the data warehouse, of which they're all contributing to, in order to export and glean information
to their data. Yeah.
Data.
Yeah.
So I got 10 buddies together. We're all in Acturis, and we said, hey, we want to know more about what's going on and talk to the insurers about our behaviors and stuff like that. You facilitate that.
That's exactly how broken networks of brokers will work in the UK. Their contract with the member of the network will enable that network to access their data on Acturis.
Is your system a lot tighter? Like, unfortunately, the one of the strength of brokers is their independence, but one of our weaknesses is we've all set up our processes different activities, different tasks, and our data, both structured and unstructured, are not the same. So it makes aggregating it very complicated. Is your system a lot tighter that if 10 brokers are on it, most likely they're going to be using the same codes? So then the insights of that data will be a lot stronger?
We tend to try and standardize across, for example, trades. The trade codification will be on a SIC code or a CSIO code list, and we'll try and standardize that and encourage the broker to use a particular code list like SIC or CSIO for that. So there's a certain sort of order in the system that we try and preserve, and often in some cases we've kind of facilitated functionality that allows brokers to set up their own fields. A good example is on claims handling. So the broker may have, for very good reasons, the need to set up reporting fields that are, this is, by depot, as an example. Claims by depot is a pretty big thing for large fleets and things like that. And they need to set that up in a particular way, and they can do that. But on the whole, we'd probably be able have an overarching structure that says this is a motor fleet claim, this is the damage list, and so on. And those dictionary elements are common. And then we try and allow supplementation of that through customization, if you like.
Very cool.
Configuration.
How close are you to personal lines brokers in Canada flipping off of Power Broker to only live inside Acturis?
It's panel dependent, Adam. So
depends who you have on your panel.
Yeah. You'd have to be happy with the panel on Acturis. Now, the supplementation of Acturis with the comparative rater should give a pretty good panel, but it's difficult for us to say. Folk have to look at it and say, "Yep, this works for me."
Fair enough. Are we still able to use the outside quoting platforms, like via right now? Power Broker integrates to CompuQuote or to PowerSoft. Like, can we do similar when it's not internal?
No, well, we've done an API integration to those, at least some of them. So one would have to just assess it and say, yep, that will work for me.
So it could be now. It could be.
Yeah, it could be. I'd say probably to get full panels but it depends on the province. We're moving it sort of province by province. But yeah, probably end of the year I'd be, for most provinces, I'd say.
You had Adam at Data Lake.
No, well,
I could see the.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we're going through sort of. We have a Power Broker user, and we're taking the old FoxPro database to convert it to a data lake that is more usable for other e-commerce and ventures we want to undertake. Is that a smart use of Acturis as a data lake? Like, should we actually be considering licensing that instead if users are looking at it the way we are?
Well, most larger brokers on Acturis would basically, as I mentioned, they'd have they'd utilize the data warehouse API. They'd grab the data and they'd bring it over into their environment. And then what they tend to do is supplement that with external data and whatever data. A lot of them have started to build up data science teams, and this is kind of what they're doing. I don't know exactly what they're doing, but they seem to be doing some pretty good work.
Yeah, but I mean, overall, the pain of moving from one BMS to another is aside from cost, even though there's a setup fee with everybody and everything, it's not really that. That's the barrier to entry. Like it's just, I've got so much going on. I've got insurers to deal with. I've got this to deal with. To throw this at my staff right now who are feeling inflation and pressures of this and people walking off the job, like to throw a BMS change at anybody is
Not fun.
It's a crucifixion.
No, it's not. It's a big job. Anytime, and it's not easy, and it's certainly not fun for the folk involved. It's a lot of hearts and minds and process changes and things like that. But I would say that folk have to do it at some point, and one has to at various points do this and just get through it.
I honestly would run 2 BMSs simultaneously for 18 months versus do a transit. I don't know how that would work training people, but like versus doing a switch.
Well, we've seen that happen in a few cases where guys have run off. They call it the old system, and as cohorts of policies come up for renewal, they've effectively manually transferred them onto the new system.
So you would have a team working on existing business and so on, and then a renewal team who now works in the new. So
yeah, and then as the renewals go onto the new system, they're maintained on the new system. So the changes, the midterm changes, and policy additions, cancellations are performed on the new system, and then there's a sort of years period where that system's effectively run down and the other ones run up.
So you're kind of doing a blood transfusion over time versus, just a full-on, quadruple bypass all at once and putting them down and major surgery.
So we sort of look at it. There's in very simplistic terms, there's two options here. There's what we call a big bang, which is essentially what you described. One day you go in and you're on the new system and the old one's sitting in the corner and nobody touches it. Or a sort of a sequential migration. And that can be either semi-automated or manual. When I say semi-automated, sometimes we've done migrations of cohorts of policy for the month. So each month you do the renewals coming up for that month. They get migrated, they get renewed on the new system, and then they're managed on the new system. So it's essentially a year where you're running down the one system and you're building up the other.
So I've been through that a few times on the insurer side, where we've done the on renewal or the runoff, whatever you want to call it. And every time we talk about Big Bang, I usually refer to that as the big kaboom, because there's usually an explosion on the day that you do the big switchover. And as an insurance carrier, you just can't afford it. Like you almost have to do the runoff 18 months.
And Steve, I'd say that as the E-Trade takes hold, the process I described is more prevalent, because you can't do a big bang migration because the E-Trade links break.
So in my experience, I've never seen anything other than the Big Bang in a broker migration in Canada.
So imagine a situation where, like, say, 60 or 70% of your policies on your BMS are linked to an insurer. Okay, so if you did a big bang, those links are broken. So from a point of where you're 80% electronic and linked, you're moving the next day to a point where it's zero. And that's totally inefficient. You can't do that. So what happens is that you'll have the two systems in parallel. For a month's worth of data that gets migrated across, it gets renewed. So you maintain the electronic connection because it's renewing. Then once it's renewed on the new system electronically, then you can do your midterm adjustments and things like that. So you maintain it. And then every month you do your renewals, or you do it maybe for 2 months at a time. And in that way you can preserve that percentage that's electronic. But if you did a big bang migration where your E-Trade quotient is really high, it could be very destructive.
Question: can you do, like, and this is fairly new, but can you do a batch download of all our policies with our companies or certain companies? So if before I go live, I get all my companies to download everything into the system. Is that a functionality? Do you have an Acturis at this point with your migration? Or are you working through that?
I think we're actually doing that in one of the new implementations.
I've got one last question for you, Theo. And again, it goes back to our previous session. You'd mentioned that you felt that brokers in general needed to make their voices heard more on driving connectivity. Have you seen that happen? Have you seen brokers actually be more active?
Well, certainly, from my team's perspective here in Canada, yeah, we're seeing that a lot more now. We're seeing a lot of brokers that we're speaking to having good dialogue with the carriers and saying, like, what are your plans? Come tell us. We want to understand this. When are you going to do this, and when can we expect that? So people are becoming a lot more aware of this. They know it's needed. They know this is what has to happen, and I think there's a general desire for to understand each carrier's timelines.
Let's fast forward 12 months from now. What do you see Acturis having accomplished during those 12 months in Canada?
Good question. I'd hope we have an East Coast office in addition to a West Coast office that makes travel a lot easier. But I'd hope that we've got a good set of integrated full cycle electronic panels in the key classes, commercial package, possibly fleet, auto, and habitational.
That's awesome.
Right, so let me say thank you to our sponsors, IFS Premium Finance, our title sponsor, our premier sponsor, Crew Group, Garrison's Brewery, and our charity partner, WIC. Thanks very much, guys. And Theo, thank you very much for coming on and the show for a second time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Is retention important to your brokerage? Of course it is. That's why at IFS, we have a cancellation prevention process. Want more details? Give us a call. I know you don't always use a premium finance company, but when you do, you should use IFS. Cheers.